Hello and welcome to the second episode of Heart Rock Cafe by the Redemptorist Media Center.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and here we have heartfelt conversations over a solid rock of faith and over a cup of coffee.
So today we are discussing about something very interesting, something that I'm a little scared to talk about. So I would go on to Michelle and ask, do you watch scary movies?
I used to when I was young, when I was in college, but not anymore.
Okay. Which movie do you not want to watch from the trailer or from what your friends have said?
I think I would dare not watch The Exorcist. The scene where the girl turns her head and looks into the priest. Oh my gosh, that is so scary. What's your movie that you would never watch?
It would be Conjuring 3. I said specifically 3 is because the scenes that are there of the demonic altar, of the satanic worship that's there, and being in faith, I'm not very comfortable with watching these type of scenes.
I agree. I wouldn't watch either. We have with us two equally devout, equally practicing, equally intelligent, and equally outspoken young Catholics with us. Welcome, Lynn and Jade.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Lynn, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Lynn. I work at Zeiss, which is a lens manufacturer. What do I do at Zeiss? I am a storyteller there, where my major reason to be a part of the company is to raise awareness on seeing better. So if anybody who have eye-related issues, I think you should just check out the brand.
Then we have Jade. He is a marketing executive in
a company called Moda.
Yes.
So, I mean, marketing's always been a huge passion of mine, just running digital campaigns and brand awareness. So the company is more into US mortgage and, handling marketing for them. So yeah, that's a little about me.
Okay. So let's get into it. So I would ask Michelle to go on.
So Lynn, I heard that you really like horror movies.
Yeah, I do.
Which is your most favorite one?
I have a lot of them, but I think there's this one specific movie which always takes me back to my childhood, and I still fear watching it. It's called Makdi. I come from the era of Doordarshan. So there were so many indie horror movies I was actually introduced to as a child, because that's technically the only channel which was available at home back then. And then later I grew apart from that and started watching other content.
Wow. And Jade, what's your favorite horror movie?
Honestly, I don't like horror movies at all. I mean, for me, horror movies just don't seem to exist. That's how I look at it. But growing up, there were a couple that I watched, and I think the most recent would be when I was like 5 or 6, and there was this particular movie that was called Drag Me to Hell. And my gosh, I regret it. Not just that day, not just that moment, but the next couple of months after watching that movie. It wasn't even the entire film, but it was just a short scene. And I vaguely remember, but then there was this lady who, I think she was trying to get married or something. And then, she wasn't able to find a spouse. And like the earth opens up and like a devil comes and just pulls her there. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Does it still haunt you because you remember so much?
Not really. I mean, I feel like, growing up in faith, obviously my spirit has, strengthened in so many ways. And right now it doesn't. For me, now when I think back or look back at it, it's like a joke. But honestly, I don't find any purpose in watching such movies, because once you come into the faith, you learn about the truth. And I think the truth is all that matters. So that's where I am.
That sounds interesting. So before we deep dive into what scary movies are, I want to let's get the audience to agree and understand what horror, scary, and demonic is. So, Lynn, do you want to elaborate on what scary movies are for you?
Okay, scary movies for me are a kind of a thrill, which give me that kind of excitement that, yay, I'm gonna like get exposed to something which is like so noisy and so well prepped, and everyone's excited about this. I can get like a lot of my friends together and tell them that, hey, this is like actually cool, but then you don't really know what exactly to expect from it. But trust me, it's not that scary also. Now, something that scary also and not scary also is not a thing. A scary is a scary movie, a horror is a horror movie. So technically there's no specific genre as such, but yeah, anything and everything which makes me scared and maybe gets me to go back home and take my rosary and pray is something which is horror for me.
So then you would say that watching scary movies helped you in your faith in a way?
Yes, of course. So, to get back to when was I actually introduced to the whole concept of horror movies, it all started when I was back in school, might be somewhere in grade 1 or grade 2, where my classmates would just come by and say, "Hey, I watched this. This was so good. It was scary. People die." And I used to be like, how is it cool to watch someone die? So, obviously, as a 6 or a 7-year-old, I went back home and spoke to my mom about, "Hey, this friend of mine watched this movie." And then my mom had to like take a deep breath because even she's being a mom for the first time. And
Right.
I think this is a challenge which every other parent faces when their child goes and asks them a question, right? Like, "Hey, I want to watch a horror movie, but okay, how do you deal with this question now?" So my mom had to like sit me down and talk about how faith works, how there's hell and how there's heaven, and how horror movies are not really healthy for us, and how it's actually good to like grow in Christian faith. But then me being a child, no, I want to watch it. I mean, I think I partially still do that. But then later, finally, she had to like sensitize this whole conversation around, make sure she introduces me to this concept in very small parts. But she always stuck to her, insights, saying that, "Hey, this is bad and this is not something what you should watch. But there's nothing wrong in watching and getting yourself exposed towards it, because if something doesn't cause fear in you, how are you going to see the greater good that's there in the world?" So that's how I started watching horror movies, if that answered your question.
Interesting. So Jade, like Lynn said, that even though her parents taught her about the faith, she still watches it. But you said that after you got into the faith, you just didn't want to watch it anymore. Why?
So, there's actually so many reasons to it, because I think, first of all, getting into the faith and just knowing more about Jesus completely transforms you as an individual. And, once you start watching horror, you just know that that's something that you're not meant to do. For example, growing up, most of us are taught, right? Like, I remember as a baby as well, watching my siblings who were younger to me and, just starting to crawl. Now, if there was a candle that was lit, it looks so fancy, the light and the shine and, the brightness of it. So they tend to go close to the candle, but then only after they touch it, then they realize the pain and the harm it causes, right? But there's always a parent to guide you, saying that, "Listen, Baba, don't do this. It's really hot. This is not meant for you." So I think that's the same thing with horror. So horror for me is something that affects me as a person. Horror for me is something that actually I feel makes my spirit and my soul very unsettled. So why get into something that affects me so much is one of the reasons I stay away from it.
Do you want to like mention any particular scenes from any movies that you watched that really like shook you?
Like I said a few minutes earlier, right? So I think there's only one movie that I remember, because after that, even till date, if there's anything that pops up, even while scrolling through Instagram, I've gotten used to this habit that by chance, if some scene starts to appear, I just turn my head away or I like flip the phone over. So, I don't really know much, but then I think, like I mentioned, the movie Drag Me to Hell was something that had a very huge impact in my life, because for almost 2 to 3 months, I was really unsettled. And it wasn't just about being scared at night, but it was just a very uneasy feeling with me. Even though I saw this movie with my parents around, right, it was more that it was being played because of my cousins who were like older to me. So it was still very unsettling, even though you had your parents around, right? And I don't know, it was just a very bad experience for me, and that's not the reason as to why I stopped watching. But like I said, I just feel that there's so much to horror movies today. Many people are not only just being peer pressured, many people want that thrill and excitement. But again, going back to the example of a candle and fire, right? Like, why walk through the fire when you know you're going to get burnt? So I look at it in that way, and I stay away from horror movies for that reason.
Okay.
And
That
I
makes
think
sense,
to
yeah.
just add on to Jade, why walk through the fire? Because I mean, if you won't have taste of it, or if you don't have an experience of it, you won't chase the greater good.
Mhm.
So one of the reasons why I try putting myself in situations where I'm just like, okay, fine. I mean, there's light at the end of this, just like how John chapter 1:5 says, right? There's always light towards the end of darkness. So that leads me to light the more I expose myself to it.
Well, wait, I actually have a question for you. If you said that you want to experience it in a way, I'm just taking the part of experiencing it. You get burnt the first time. Why would you want to get burnt the second time or more badly, right? So, I mean, it is good to experience it in a way, but why would you want to burn yourself?
I think that comes also with experience, right? As we grow into life as well. The world which we live in is not like a happy world and a faithful world. It is an evil world. And we don't learn from our mistakes. That doesn't mean that we don't keep on making mistakes, because there are different definitions to it, right? Like different experiences to every different mistakes which lead us to become strong in life. So that's where.
I think it's personal preference.
Yeah.
There are ways to become strong. One is to face the danger head on, or one is to, maybe like what you do, maybe study not in the fire, but maybe out of the fire, and say, okay, I might get hurt, but I can grow strong in other ways. Right. So I wanted to come to Lynn and ask, what type of thrill do you get from watching horror? It doesn't have to be horror, or is it the thrill of being surprised, or is it jump scares? What awakens you that yeah.
True. Okay, so I've always studied in a Christian institution all my life, but I've always had classmates from different faith as well. So now when we have these movies, like the franchisee movies, like The Conjuring or It, right? And these movies have been like blockbusters in the market, right? And initially, of course, I was not. I mean, I know what's in store, I know what's gonna happen, but I used to be like, okay, fine, another horror movie, right? Just like the last one. So I'll watch it whenever I want to catch up. It's not like I do it for the thrill of it, or on the first day, the first show, I go and I sit in the theater and I'm like gonna watch it. Right. But then I would always have classmates who would come back to school and be like, oh, you're a Catholic, you have a crucifix at home, does it turn as well? And then I has to be like, what are you talking about? Because this is not the Christian faith which I have been brought up in. This is not what Jesus Christ wants for all of us, right? So in order to educate somebody who's already been exposed into something what they have no idea about, I think it's very important to watch something, dwell deep into it, to get the facts around it, and because a lot, I mean, for example, something like the movie The Nun, right? I always went to a convent school and a college which was run by institutions, and whenever they would like see a nun in a particular attire, they would be like valak, and I'd be like, this is not how it works. So I used to just go back to history and talk about things, and talk about the difference between what's a Christian horror, what's not, what's purely entertainment, what's been done by a few people who look at the market, because the whole horror market is like a money-making market for them. Because when you look at the horror movie entertainment industry as a whole, right? If you look at the investment that goes into it, there's not much that goes into it.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no much glamour that goes into it. You don't need a lot of money to make something look terrible, right? I mean, we all know that for ourselves. Yeah. So there's so much that goes into just watching something, apart from being like, hey, you're gonna watch something which is horror that's going to make you unholy, or it's not good at all. But then imagine, just picturize it in a way where you're watching it so that you focus on the greater good, telling people that this is not how the real world works. This is not what Jesus wants for us. This is not what God sent Jesus to the world to take him back to save us from our sin.
So basically, to get more knowledge,
yep,
you want to watch.
Totally.
But has there been any instances where after you watched, was it hard for you to come back to reality? Like he said, 2 to 3 months he was
definitely
done.
Definitely. Like there's this franchisee movie, Smile. There was Smile 1 and Smile 2. It was all about the entity where, you see someone get it and they die in front of you, and then it passes on to the next person. And that's basically how this whole movie works, right? And there's no end to the entity if an individual doesn't die by themselves without anyone else watching them. Okay. And that gave me a reality check that how is this okay? How is this funny? How are you even supporting something like this? How is it okay to see someone else die in front of you? That gave me a wake-up call. Of course, that's what led me to, talk to people about, okay, think about a human perspective, right? Like, how can you be okay in making fun of something or enjoying something? Like this is not a world which we want to live in. This is not a world which we want to create. This is even not a world which we want to encourage.
I think they normalize killing, they normalize all of it. That's what horror movies are. They romanticize getting possessed, being in this way, and it tends to lead people who are, I will say, weaker in faith. Not weaker, as a person, but in faith. Because at the end of the day, what happens is, again, the intention on why we go and watch it depends. How you go and watch it might not be how we go and watch it or anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes me back to my childhood, because I mean, that's where we get into. I mean, I got introduced to the whole concept of horror, but I got introduced to it in a way where there was good, there was evil. There was also the whole introduction of the Bible, that it's just not a holy book. It's something that has the answers to all your questions. And the Bible also explains to us what demon looks like. I mean, like basically how the demon doesn't really have power on us at all. Like, I mean, of course, there's the existence of evil spirits, and the existence of evil on the whole, right? But we have answers there, that Jesus is here to redeem us all from all of it and take control. So surrender our lives to Jesus. So that's where I come from.
That's great. That's great.
So I have a question for just both of you. Any of you can answer. So I know we're talking about like these really scary movies like Conjuring and Annabelle and stuff.
Yeah, that's what.
But what about like Bulbulaya? It's a comedy movie, okay? And it's so funny. And I think like it has humor and it also has a scary part. So if I call you Jade, would you come and watch a movie like that with me? Would you still say no?
Yes, I would. So again, right? It's not about the scary factor in it, but I think, like Lynn was saying, right? A part that I would actually acknowledge of what you were saying is the fact that you want to experience it. But what we also should understand, that as we grow, we learn from our experiences, and that's how we become more mature. So I think there are certain decisions as individuals that we need to take up. Like, if I ask you something, Michelle, like, I'm sure you would have your views on certain topics which you would stand for. So I think that's my view in general when it comes to horror. Like, probably if you asked me, I would think that the directors made this movie adding like a comic relief just to draw more people to see the scary part of it, which could have a negative impact. So yeah.
Yeah, but let's also talk about some movies that stick to the Christian values, like the Pope's Exorcist.
Pope's Exorcist,
Yeah. And when I watched that movie, it was scary for someone like me who doesn't like watching scary movies. But if you look at the way the exorcism went and all of it, it did stick to our Christian values. And like Lynn talks about how that unless you see it, unless you know what's happening, we cannot really help our fellow Christians to know that this is the truth and this is not. So I know that Jade, you are in the youth of the church, right? For someone who's heading the youth, I'm guessing, heading the youth, how would you advise your fellow Christians when they want to watch such movies? Like, what is the boundary for them?
So that's actually a very interesting topic. I'll answer that in two parts. But to begin with that, I would say it all depends on, your mindset, the ideology, and the faith that you currently have. Because, at the end of the day, all of us are coming together as a Christian Catholic community, right? All of us know. But I think many of these people who go for such movies go definitely for the thriller aspect, maybe for the jump scare. But many do not know the intent of why the movie was made, right? If you compare movies like The Pope's Exorcist, there are various other movies which directors and various other people actually try to come up with something with an evil intention. And that also takes a negative impact when you're viewing it. But what do people my age or like youth rather do, right? They go for these movies to just prove a point. They want to say, hey, no matter what you throw on screen, I'm not afraid. Like, God's with me.
Yeah.
But like subconsciously, do you really think that you didn't get scared? Like I said, right, you don't have to be scared about a visual effect that pops up on the screen, but it's everything that builds up. It's the sound effects, it's the atmosphere, it's the person you go with, and then everything suddenly gives you a jump scare, and then you're like, whoa, is it good, is it bad? So when people go for such movies, they always come back and they forget about the faith, right? Maybe for a few of them, they might come, like Lynn was saying, hold the rosary, sleep, or say a Bible verse. But then, are you actually meaning that, right? So if I'm going for a horror film, I should first understand, myself as a person. I should see where I stand and then take a call if I think it's good for me, and not because a group of friends want to go for it. So that's there. And another thing, the second part is a little off topic, but in the same lines. Many of the youth that I move along with, very random and very openly, they talk about things like, the Ouija board,
Yeah.
and, how it's cool to just go to all these cemeteries at 2 a.m. in the morning and be like, is there a ghost out there? Or is there a spirit waiting for me? But they don't realize that just saying things out open, like with a loose tongue, actually has an effect. Because even in the Bible, there are so many cases where God reminds us that every word that comes out of our mouth has power. Right? Now, you get to decide whether you want that power to be positive or whether you want it to be negative. And the minute you speak negative, that's what you experience. So it's not only these people who talk about this, but I've personally seen them go through several things. Maybe the next day or the following week, they experience something that they've never experienced, but they fail to realize what's the root cause of it. They fail to realize that, okay, maybe this is something they know it's wrong, but they still want to test the waters, right? So again, I think it's just how much of a faith you have, and how you really build that strength to tackle these problems. If you're sure and confident that you as a person know what you're doing, then of course God is there for everybody. It's not that He's going to abandon you the minute you go sit in a movie theater to watch horror film. But it's always about making that wise decision and being prudent about what you want to do.
I just want to add to what Jade said. We tend to not realize the power that things have, especially the way we watch it, or the words we speak, the words we hear. Being into spirituality, being into the healing and deliverance ministry, I've gone through what the doorways of our faith is and to our body. So there are 3 doorways: the eyes, the ears, and the mouth. And what we see, what we hear, and what we speak, it feeds directly to our soul and our spirit. And because of which, we will be exposed and we will be vulnerable to the things that we shouldn't be, right? And again, coming back to what I said about Conjuring 3, why it was so disturbing for me is the whole movie, so it revolves around this lady. She is a Satanist, and she curses this one object and she places it under a house. And then I think we have all seen, hopefully. So what I was trying to say is when they show the altar, when they show her casting the curse, it was very disturbing to my spirit. Because getting to know who God is, how powerful He is, we tend to question, is evil more than God, right? And even in James chapter 4 verses 7, it says, surrender to God, resist from the devil. God never asks you to go to the devil and say, no, you can't do anything. Because we don't have the power. Our flesh, because we are here in this earth, we don't have the power. And only God has the power. So again, I wanted to add to that and, say that we tend to not understand the power that things have in our life.
True. But I also want to say that, like I would agree with Lynn saying that unless you expose yourself to what's happening, you cannot really guide someone, right? Now, there are 2 ways we can see it. Maybe if you're going to watch a horror movie, you're playing with your, faith. You're just like, how much can I actually stay here till I know that, okay, I don't believe in God or I don't believe in faith, right? But there's also an other side where you see like, I want to be here till the end because I know that half of it is not as true as what we believe as Christians. And it's also the fact that I'm trying to become more strong with respect to the fact that these things don't scare me as much, right? So there are like these two sides of the same coin. Like you can either be more courageous to the fact that the more I'm not saying go run and watch it, but like when I watch it, can I still be like, no, I'll not buy it. This is not something that I buy because it's not as per my faith. Or the side where I'm like, okay, I'm watching it, but this is also increasing the doubt. So for Lynn, saying that, we need to be more informed, and to where is that line to say that, okay, I'm more strong in my faith, or no, this is messing with me so much that now I don't believe God is strong enough.
Okay, so there are many parts to how I'd like to answer your question, right? It's an industry, first of all.
Yeah.
Secondly, if we don't have enough awareness about this industry, I mean, the industry is anyways growing.
Yeah.
But then I think we as Christians, we can just have that faith of a small mustard seed and raise that awareness, right?
Yeah.
And every day I wake up, I have this purpose to myself that I want to add value somewhere, not cause any sort of a destruction, and try being a change maker in some form. So if I mean, like by choice, like I think even when Noel mentioned the whole idea of getting yourself exposed to content like this, it's by choice. So, and the choice comes from a place where I want to raise awareness. So if I don't know what I'm watching, I wouldn't be able to tell someone else that, hey, this is not really advisable for you to watch, because a no is always a yes. Like I cannot be restricted to myself saying that, hey, this is bad, I'm not gonna watch it, let it be wherever it is, because the industry is always going to grow. It's always going to multiply, and there's nobody going to be able to stop. But if you had the faith of that mustard seed, I think one can turn into 10, and the 10 can turn into 100. So that's one part of it. Secondly, this industry also gives birth to a whole lot of objects out there, right? Like, for example, there are certain crystals or certain bracelets or certain, I mean, right now there's this whole trending Labubu doll, which is out there, where everybody thinks it's like a hobby to have it, to have a collection of it. But it's not cool because it's totally demonic, and most of us know about that. But it's because of the existence of this industry. So me as a Christian, if I don't have an idea about anything of it, and if I'm gonna just look at a Labubu doll as a doll because of however it looks like, and maybe if I don't like it by choice, I need to have the reasons to tell somebody why I don't like it. If I do not have a reason, I'm not really justifying the whole argument over there, or the whole concept of making sure this doesn't multiply. So in the same way, I mean, the whole message is not to tell everyone, hey, go watch horror movies because it's going to make you feel excited or thrilled or whatever it is. But watch it to use whatever you're seeing for the real good, because you know Jesus is protecting you, but you can also protect so many other people out there to just stop getting exposed to that content. Because I know for a fact, the other day I was just like traveling by some public transport, and I heard some students from school sitting behind, hey, you know what, we can keep candles in the dark and do this. I saw it in this movie. I'm just like, you're getting influenced in such a bad way, and these kids don't really have anyone to influence them with the real good things, that these things are not healthy and these things don't really exist. But because of content out there like this, people are made to believe. Yeah.
So that's what brings us to this whole point of what is the age group that they can start watching content. Because like you said, you are more informed because now you're older and you have that clarity. But talk about the young youth who may have just been like in high school and stuff, or maybe in middle school, right? Like, okay, when they see these fascinating things happen, like I never bought the Annabelle doll after that movie. Like, any doll, I was like, no.
I didn't even get the Shakalaka Boom Boom pencil, which was also a magic pencil, and we know magic doesn't.
Exactly.
That's not how it exists, right?
Yeah. So for someone who's seeing this for the first time, who's new to all of this, like, what is the age gap, I would say?
Before Lynn answers, I think it depends on the level of faith. I don't think we can restrict it to age. We never know what type of faith a 15-year-old has, because I think in Kerala, I don't know the person's name, but he is a 17-year-old and he's preaching to thousands of people. And when I see that, I'm filled with joy, because being in that age, and me being say 22 and me not doing what he's doing, it takes courage and it takes faith. I think Lynn, because she has that courage and she knows what the truth is why she's able to do it. But again, we can do the age.
When it comes to the right age, definitely, like Noel said, there's no right age.
Yeah.
But I was really lucky to be grown in a Catholic environment where I had parents at home who would tell me what's right, what's wrong. Luckily, we had catechism in school, then we had catechism in church, where we were really educated about content, right? And I didn't even come from a generation which had like tabs. Today, if you see children, they just know how to swipe and get the content out there, right? I would strongly urge and tell parents that it's very important to track what your kids are actually doing in terms of knowing the kind of content they are watching. Maybe sit with them and even watch cartoons, because even Pokemon has the good and the evil in it. I mean, that's how we grew, right?
Okay.
So even cartoons have, I mean, I think right now cartoons also have diversified. There's like so much which has come by. So it's very important for parents to sit with children, watch content with them so that they know where the kids are leading. Also start sensitizing and talk to children about, you know, what they're watching, why they should be watching it. Is it really adding value to them? The good and the evil, like I've been saying repeatedly in this entire session, right? Like I said, there's no right or wrong age, but I think once you start going to school, kids are today unstoppable because they are just consuming and acquiring knowledge from like nowhere, and they're coming home and they just leave you spellbound, being like, what is even happening? Where are they learning this from? But then they're unstoppable. But it's, I mean, as soon as it is, I think it is great. Yeah. There's no number to it.
All right. Well, that was all about the movies. Would you like to share maybe like a real life experience that you've had? So when I was a child, we used to have these group of friends being like, come on, let's talk about ghost stories. You know, that's like the thrill in the night to sit together and talk. And they would share stories about a real life experience. So do you all think you all have encountered something like that and felt like, if I just prayed the rosary, I feel like it changed things? Or heard stories?
I have an instance. It was not when I was younger. It was about 1.5 years back. It was my cousins and I. We were sitting in our backyard, and we were just, you know, chatting. We had lunch. We came back. We were sitting. We were, I think, drinking some cool drinks, and because we all are in faith and we are involved in the ministry, I was just asking about, what is the dark web, and you know, what is satanic worship and all that. And one of my younger cousins, he actually went through, I mean, he tried to read on all this in the dark web, and he said, please don't do it. And I said, oh, why? And then he said, and this actually mesmerized me. So then he went and he started getting into it. He started getting into, when he was researching, he started getting into satanic worship. He started getting into angels, fallen angels. He started getting into all these things that we are not much exposed to because our parents say don't do it. And then from his experience, he said that he was doing this research for about 2 to 3 months. And then for the next 1 year, he went into depression. He had anxiety. There were things in his life that he couldn't, you know, control. And right after that conversation that we had, I think it was 2023 December, for the next 2 days, I was just done. I don't know what happened to me. I was faithful, don't get me wrong. We had a retreat. All of us were faithful. We just prayed, but something was off. It was a feeling that you have right after a retreat. It's called dry season. When you are at the peak of your, you know, spirituality, and then there's nothing, right? So that's one experience that I had. I would ask Lynn to.
I mean, actually, you know, I think something that Noel pointed out is a question that I have, right? Many a time we fail to actually look at the root cause of certain things. Like, it's always when it's like we see this in many other genres of movies. They say, don't push the red button. And that's when you want to push it. So, I mean, you know, people tell it to you for a reason. But again, like Lynn also, you know, explained, it's always that rebellious nature in a way to find out, like, why shouldn't I do that? But, you know, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to Christian formation, and when it comes to also having horror films as a genre, it just takes me back to this priest, Father Rob Gallia, where he said a particular line that actually had a very huge impact in my life. It was about having an encounter with Jesus. Now, when you have an encounter with Jesus, all you want to do is talk about Him. All you want to do is show His love and His nature. Now, why would you want to test not only yourself, but also God by having an encounter with Satan in these forms, right? So, that's the thing, right? When your faith is strong, I think you should be more firm with that and not be like, okay, what's the dark web? Oh, satanic worship? Wow, that sounds cool. What is that? It's like you're forgetting about yourself, right? So that's where I don't really understand why, many youth go for it, because I have a very close friend of mine who loves to watch horror films. And, whenever she gets the chance, she's scared, like really scared, but she will want to watch it.
I think she should be friends with
Yeah, and the aftermath of it is that for the next 1 month, sleepless nights, even if you pull the blanket all over your face, you're not able to sleep because you think someone's near you. If the door is open, you think something's approaching you. And there's so much of torture that you're actually giving yourself. And maybe people could say that it's a way of strengthening my faith. But at the same time, if you think that you're strengthening your faith, I want to question, everyone else who gives this reason, like, how good is your faith? Like, do you question yourself before going for a movie, right? So, if your faith is strong, if your faith is good, if you're confident, maybe like a person like Lynn, then you can go, with everything that you've got, walk straight into the theater like you're a boss. But then if you don't know that, and if it's just for the, thrill and the chill and all that experience, I think you're just harming yourself. So
I think it comes from we are ignorant towards the power of evil.
True.
We still don't know what evil is, and if there's evil in us, because the Bible also says we are not good, we are not righteous, we can't be righteous by ourselves. And the rebellious nature, like you spoke about, I would, just an example, if someone slaps you, our reaction is to slap him back. That's our natural reaction. It's not, our reaction isn't, oh, God told me to love, I have to love. No. Our reaction is to smack that guy or girl or whoever it might be. So having that rebellious nature in us, we need to, in my opinion, we need to ignore and not look at the other part, because we can't control it. It's not in our, it's not in our hands. And even the Bible, Ephesians chapter 6 verses 12, it says that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but we fight against the rulers and the authorities of the spiritual realm. So why I said this was, again, we don't understand the power that evil has. Even though it's not as powerful as God, not even near, we can't fight it. And again, it comes back to faith.
True. But I think, while I was talking to Lynn, that there were some good movies that she's watched, which aren't too horrific, which I feel like had good messages. Would you like to talk about those movies?
Two movies in specific. One is The Quiet Place,
Okay.
where it talks about the love of the family, where everyone's supposed to keep quiet through the whole movie, and it's all through sign languages and all of it. And at one point, when they know that somebody's made the sound, the father gives up his life for his family, right? So that reminds us about the love that Jesus has for us, because Jesus gave up his life for us. There's also another movie called Lights Out, where the mother Sophie has a friend, Diana, and I think they used to be friends back in their childhood, and Diana passed away because she had a skin-related issue. And the movie goes on where Sophie grows and she has her family and all of it. And at one point, she still encounters Diana's spirit. And at one point, when they get to know about it, when that whole family is, in danger, Sophie gives up her life so that her family is like free. Again, it reminds us of the love of Jesus Christ. And that again takes me back to my faith. And also, I think just prior, you asked me a question about has watching horror movies has any negative impact on me? Yes.
Yeah.
I think anything with too much of indulgence definitely does have, and it gives us a reality check, or it just, I mean, the noises and the kind of content and all of it just creates a negative impact where I think when we're asleep, we're hallucinating on the same thing. Where I remember there was this one time, I think about a couple of years ago, I must have gone on a movie marathon and watched anything and everything possible on Netflix and must have just passed out. And I could hear dogs barking out loud in my sleep. And I could actually hear a whisper of somebody calling out Lynn. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, this was just a dream. But then that takes me back that because I have indulged in content like this for like a long time throughout the whole day, that's created this recall in me. And spiritually, I think we always call 3 o'clock as the Lord's time, right? And I remember when this whole dream took place and I came across the time as well, I was like, damn. That's where I knelt down and I said my prayers. And fortunately, unfortunately, I think I always have these moments because I indulge myself in into content like this. I do have a wake-up call at this time saying that, are you spending enough time with the Lord or only giving importance to content like this? So yeah, I mean, these are the kind of reality checks I definitely have because of, you know, like God, Jesus always gets back you to him, and that's how he is, that's how good he is. So this is an experience which I've had.
Actually, adding on to that, right? Like, if you look at it, like, look at the audience. Since now the horror industry, like the entertainment industry, is like really huge. They have a very big audience. Not everybody is like-minded like her. There are a lot of people who actually, you know, go through a lot. And for example, just bringing up a personal instance, you know, my cousin used to watch like Conjuring, this, that, and then it so happened that it was a very, you know, eerie atmosphere, like in her bedroom, like when she used to sleep, that every night, I think for almost a month, and you should hear it from her, because then you'll realize that how real it is. From me, it's just, you know, going to be sounding like a story, but there used to be this disfigured little boy or girl who would stand at the foot, like, so she's lying down on the bed, this figure would be like near her feet, and then try to just place his or her hands on her legs and, you know, slowly come up. And it was so real. Like, initially when I heard it, I laughed because I'm like, hey, come on, you're just pulling my leg, or, you know, you're just trying to come up with something. But then that's what we don't realize, right? There could be an audience like Lynn or other people who feel like, you know, again, I think if you connect it with spirituality and faith, again, that's a different conversation. But there's a very large audience of people who don't know what they're getting into. And, you know, sometimes it's so realistic. Like, it's not you hallucinating anymore. You can actually feel someone else's touch. And my cousin really went through a very hard time. She had to go, you know, there were a lot of people. She went to the doctors to check whether she was mentally ill. She had to go to priests to get prayed upon, call the priest for a house blessing so that holy water is sprinkled. But, you know, many a time we don't realize what do we get ourselves into for it to have such a big impact. So I think, you know, there are some points that could be taken that many of the youth today actually, you know, deal with or connect with, but there's always a bigger group. And, you know, if you know there's something wrong, or you're getting into something that's not meant for you, I do agree on the fact of awareness, right? Like informing. But then that's the thing, right? Many of us, if I have to like turn the table around and just put a question, how many of y'all actually went for catechism classes? You know, maybe Lynn will be the first one to raise a hand up. But there's a lot of youth, a lot of youngsters who do not attend catechism.
I think
right?
that's because they don't pay attention. They don't want to know.
Yeah, true, fair. I mean, again, there could be so many reasons. One is either the parents are busy that they're not there, or, you know, they don't want to know. They think, oh, catechism is boring, and a lot of things. But that's the thing, right? Like, when you look at the Catholic faith and you don't have that part of you completely there, then you want to explore something horrific. I mean, there are going to be repercussions to it. So
It also comes with this whole idea of how these movies are trying to distort our image of God. and that, you know, good is above evil. For example, the things that I think the way she said, 3 o'clock, right? Even till today, there are these superstitious beliefs that, okay, 3 a.m. the devil's gonna come,
Yeah.
or the night is for the devil and the day is for God.
And even they say the divine mercy at 3 a.m., right?
Yes.
Some of
3
them.
p.m.
Yeah, because it's the devil's hour, apparently.
Like Jade mentioned, the catechism children, they are bored. They're not interested in what they want to, you know, what we need to learn. Being a Sunday school teacher, I have firsthand, you know, experience with these kids. And whenever we, you know, go into, say, a story or say about Moses or Abraham, you know, even about Jesus, they're least bothered. All they want to do is go to the ground, play football, or you know, they'll come to me and say, "Sir, can you take us home? We want to play, you know, Xbox or anything." So I just wanted to add that children these days, they are not interested in the, you know, in the fact of as itself. We need to make it interesting. And by that, what I mean is how I do it is by discussing about many other topics. You know, they want to talk about, you know, suffering. Why does God let people who are suffering? Actually, one of the kids, last year when the Wayanad incident happened, he came and asked me, "Sir, why are the small children, you know, dying? Doesn't God have mercy on them?" And then he went on to say, "So will they be in heaven or hell?" Now I didn't know the answer. So then, you know, one of the other, you know, brothers that we have, they spoke. So yeah, why I mentioned this is the disinterest that children have is a serious, I won't say a problem, but a hindrance to their faith.
Keeping in mind that, you know, you do watch your horror movies, do you take any precaution before watching these movies? Like mentally, do you prepare or something like that?
I think something what I always follow is pray Psalm 91 every day. But apart from that, I don't think there's any day at one point when I realized how these kind of content have a negative impact on us that I've actually got out of my house or lured around without a rosary around my neck. So the kind of precautions I normally take is believe that the rosary is going to protect me no matter what. Have faith in it. Have faith in my prayers. Have faith on reciting the armor of God really loud within my room space so that, you know, I know it's been heard out there and I'm just protected when I'm going around, and not indulge and be obsessed on something for too long because it becomes an addiction at one point, right? Just look at it as a form of an awareness, because that's my purpose why I watch such content, so that I can just spread a good message out there or stop somebody if in case they're going the wrong way. Like, for example, today we live in a very competitive world where everyone wants to be at the top. Things have not been normalized that, hey, you're comfortable with whatever you're doing. Maybe you have a greater purpose out there, but, you know, keep praying and keep doing anything and everything you're doing with a heart full of gratitude, right? But today people just want to have this extra power to get to the top. And then they're finding like shortcuts because nobody wants to struggle in life. So that's one of the reasons why horror content, to be very specific, is being, you know, consumed by viewers, is because, hey, you know, I saw the shortcut, so why don't I just try it? And by chance, maybe it's just occurred in a way where things have worked in someone's favor that they want to do it more and more, and then that becomes an addiction, and then we open gates to a whole lot of problems after that. So maybe trying to create awareness at the start itself, saying that, hey, this is fiction, this is an industry, consume it only up to a certain level, but do not practice it in your own life. Until then, I think it's all fine. And also, as Christians, it's very important to seek Jesus everywhere we go, to also practice our faith everywhere we go. I think we were just talking about catechism at this point, right? And I grew up, I think, till class 12th, where I went for catechism on every Sunday. And today I look around at children where they're just like lazing around on a Sunday and they're talking about waking up late, going for a brunch and then a movie and all of it. But back in the day for us, it was all about go to church even on a Sunday, like wake up at like 7 in the morning, make it to that catechism class at 8. I also remember for a fact how seriously my parents took church catechism exams, and they would check our grades
It's
as
very competitive.
yeah, and check our grades as well. And at that point, I would just be like, this is not even school. Why are my parents taking this so seriously? But down, I mean, after so many years, I realized that the reason why they did it is because maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not like indulged in anything that's not unhealthy to me. But today, I hear so many parents, I hear so many children talk facts like, hey, Sunday is a day of rest and it's supposed to be a day for Sabbath, right? So why do we need to go for catechism? We anyways have it in school.
Yeah.
Or we're going to school like from a Monday to a Saturday. So that's a day of rest. But they don't understand the need to, I mean, how much ever you expose yourself to the church, or how much ever you try to seek Jesus by going to church or associating yourself with anybody related to the church, that's only going to do you good and not bad.
True.
So
I agree.
they are the kind of precautions I believe it's very important one needs to take in life.
Yeah, I think catechism really builds the foundation for us about our faith. And if we are not doing that, then.
Absolutely.
So, as someone who watches movies, do you have a filter of, though you're a Christian, though you have your foundation in faith, like there are certain movies that you will not watch no matter what?
To be very honest, I think whenever I'm watching a movie, I cannot sit through an entire movie at one shot, right? Of course, when you go to the theater, you still have that interval. Maybe when I'm watching it at home, I watch it in parts. And when I feel that this is not healthy for me, or when I know that there's that impact being created in my mind, that's where I put a hard stop to it. And I don't go further. So that's the place where I draw a line. Or maybe sometimes I just read like the plot of what exactly the movie is about. How much can I tolerate it? And like I said, that sometimes it's very important to be exposed towards fear. And there's only so much you can do with your fear, right? Like if you don't say that there are no bounds to anything, right? Like somewhere you're going to get triggered. So I have those moments when I'm watching any kind of content and I'm just like, okay, I can't do more than this. It's done.
Yeah. So I think being self-aware is so important. Like I and my sister, both of us, like she loves horror movies, but we both do the same thing. Like we pray and all of that. But I can't watch horror movies. And I remember her telling me one day, being like, Michelle, you pray, you go to church, you say the rosary. But why is it that, you have this fear inside of you after you come out of a horror movie? Or what would you like to say about, like, we do the same thing, brought up in the same environment, but it's so different the way we view it?
It's about the faith, and faith must only get stronger. Read the Bible, you find your answers there one by one. Today, luckily we have tools like the GPT and Gemini, of course. So sometimes I also go for help there as well. I just type my statement saying that, hey, you know what, I have this issue. I mean, which Bible verse can I keep reading? And there's no power like the word has, So you keep reciting any word at any point of time, which you feel is going to give you strength at that point. There's nothing that will overcome it.
That's actually great that she said. The power that you get is from the upbringing that you have. And, I've seen it in many instances in my friends and my family where for us, because we are Christians, when we are struggling, we say, go pray to God, or go confess, or, sit with your family, have a community and all that. But I keep wondering, this is a, question that's always in my mind. What about the people in other faith? How do they deal with leave heartbreak? How do they deal with some hardships that they have? Are they surrendering themselves to a higher power, or what do they do? And it's something that I've still not been able to answer myself. But I want to emphasize on the Catholic Church, how much they emphasize on Sunday school, family prayer, reciting prayers, the power of the Bible, the power of Word of God. And like you said, saying things out.
Yeah, and just to add on to what you said, right? A lot of people have this very simple question called how to pray. At one point, I had it too. And when I kept saying, how do I pray? I'm sure that when I was saying it out loud, Jesus heard me. And this was during the pandemic as well. I was hearing the online mass, and it was Father Oswald who was a part of the whole session. And during his homily, he mentioned that the way you pray is start doing simple things. You don't need to have a huge big prayer in place. You can just sit and look at the Blessed Sacrament And then and then silence speaks more than words and most times, right? And that's where Jesus starts talking to you. And I think we start small, and then later we go step by step, and then we grow in faith. And
It's like being honest to God.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
Being yourself.
Yep.
We don't have to, because God accepts us no matter what we do. His grace is not restricted with our actions.
True.
We restrict His grace through our actions. We need to accept it, and that's where most of the Christians, they struggle. We think, oh, we need to be purified before going to God, or we need to be a certain way. No, we can go, and then He'll do what He wants to do in our life.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's always that freedom of choice that He's given. But I feel like as Christians, many of us misuse it in so many ways. And even just coming to the point where you mentioned that we feel that we should be in a state of grace, or like very holy for God to accept. But then you even see that passage, in the scriptures where God talks about how a Pharisee was judging a sinner who came to the temple to pray, right? But in the end, the sinner will be saved compared to the one who's like, it clearly mentions, right? First, remove the log in your own eye rather than looking at the splint in someone else's eye. So I think in that way, we should be like more mindful of things. Like, nowadays, like even horror movies, right? Like there's so much of supernatural things to it. There's like so much of black magic and, a lot of evil intent that actually comes into the making of such things. So as Christians, are we really aware of it? Because it's as simple as this. Catechism can be boring if that's what people say. But I feel it's just an excuse that's being given. And it's obviously, the temptation that's there for other things. But like I mentioned, there's only one truth that all of us can believe and agree on. There's only one person who came down to set us free. And it's as clear and as bright as day, right? So we don't need to go seeking for something else to feel, like we have some sort of power, or to feel like we could be in the trend of being cool if we watch or cater to something like that. But I think we should be really, really prudent in what we choose, because many a time, like Lynn mentioned, right, it could be taking a step saying that, okay, I want to build my faith. But by chance, like suppose you said, like one point I appreciated is like always like just doing a read up as to what you're getting into, taking a precaution as to what, because if you don't do that, you may never know where you end up and how it's going to affect you. You can get into depression, you can get into, have anxiety issues, mental breakdowns, so many things. And then you will not realize what's the cause. But then you will think that watching more horror films gives you that thrill and sort of just takes you away from your current troubles, when it's actually stacking up a lot more. So I think like, it's not really about catechism playing a very, very vital role, but like I said, you as a person, right? Like it depends on how we read the word of God and how we believe it. So
basically faith after
faith.
catechism.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking to Father earlier, and he said catechism never ends.
Yeah.
It's for all ages, right? And why I said this is the industry now, as we're talking about the horror, the scary movie industry, they try to falsify the power of God and evil, right? They're always, they keep saying maybe the evil is higher than God. Because any movie that we see, towards the end, there's some doll that turns his head, or there's something that falls, or there's something that portrays evil is bigger than God. And it's our duty to know that, and to believe, and to know, and to understand that God can never be defeated. It's our duty. There might be things that are in the world that, say different, but they can't prove it wrong. Because, like he said, what the movies are indulged in, we don't know. The black magic that they do, or the pujas that they do, talking about India, or the different things that they do, the actors, how they are, with what intention that they come, with what intention they make the movie, we don't know. So we need to be careful. We need to take a decision after prayer.
And always believe, right? Like 1 John chapter 4 verse 4. He that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. So it's, all the answers are out there. But then sometimes we choose to still build more questions and avoid the answers. So yeah, that's something we can all change and look in a different perspective.
Yeah.
So what, like, from where we have been from the beginning till where we have come, I think we have understood that prudence is so important, and it's like also depends on each person how much we know ourselves. Like if I'm a person who's very imaginative, I think I would prefer to stay away from these movies because it would mess with my head so much. And I think Jade may be one among those. But people like Lynn who feel like I know myself enough to know that this is my limit, and they would like explore. And we want to dive more deeper into exorcism. So we invite Father Sandeep to come and join us. Yeah. Welcome, Father. Thank you for joining us.
I've been listening in from behind the scenes, and thanks for calling me in to the frame. Okay, but really inspired by the depth of faith and the discussion that went on so far. So I'm happy to be a part of the conversation.
Okay, so Father, so we were talking about, and you heard us, and I just want to know that, you know, these movies, they exaggerate about evil, and especially exorcism, right? And a lot of us who don't know about this, firstly I want to ask, is it as true as they portray it?
Well, movies don't sell unless they are exaggerated. And, and no one's going to, honestly, no one's going to watch a film if it's going to be like real life. Movies are a way for us to escape from reality and just forget about our problems and kind of experience the depths of emotions that we've not experienced in ordinary life. So I think one of the important things for Christians in general with regards to entertainment is to be able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. And that's why catechism, like you were mentioning, is so important, because catechism is where we understand reality from God's point of view. Like what God has revealed to us in Jesus Christ and through the church. And so when we have to assess our fantasy with our spirituality, where do we go to? We need to go to the scriptures, we need to go to the teachings of the church. And that's the yardstick, I would say, by which we measure invisible things. So if I'm watching a horror film, how do I assess whether it is exaggerated or realistic, whether it is in like matching with Christian values or contrary to Christian values? I will have no compass if I don't have a strong understanding of my faith as a Christian, no? And so I would like to point out to the Catechism of the Catholic Church with regards to the choices that Christians make for their entertainment, because I think this conversation can go deeper maybe in another episode where we explore entertainment choices, because the Catechism actually in Catechism Article 2496 says, the means of social communication, especially the mass media, can give rise to a certain passivity among users, making them less than vigilant consumers of what is said or shown. Users should practice moderation and discipline in their approach to the mass media. They will want to form enlightened and correct consciences the more easily to resist unwholesome influences. So that's why we are having this episode, so that we form consciences to be able to discern what is right and what is wrong, and what is a good choice for entertainment and what is not. So to answer your question, Michelle, what is shown in movies is usually exaggerated. And what is exaggerated is the power of evil. Because the Christian faith teaches us that God is more powerful than all hell combined. That's one of the prayer lines that we say in the novena to Mother of Perpetual Help. That, oh Mother of Perpetual Help, with you on our side, you are more powerful. You and God on our side, you are more powerful than all hell combined. So when we know that God is with us, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that's what we proclaim whenever we say in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. We are saying the Trinity dwells within me. And then when we pray to Mary, we pray to the saints, we remind ourselves that we are not just individuals walking through this spiritual battle, but there is a stadium of heavenly hosts. All the communion of the saints, the angels, they are walking with us. So why should we be afraid? So, the lie that is sold to us, if there is anything in the horror films, is that evil is more powerful than God. You know, but at the same time, like Jade used the analogy of the flame. You know, why does the kid want to touch the flame? Because it's fascinating. It's curious. You know, it's curiosity that leads us down the path towards the occult. And another thing besides curiosity is the search for power and success easily, taking the shortcut. And so that's why many people in business and in politics are, fascinated by black magic, or the dark arts of how to unlock the secret powers of nature. And so if you go down that rabbit hole, it's not as if you are really unlocking hidden powers, but it is like you are inviting the fallen angels. That is what the Christian teaching is about evil, is that actually there is no such thing as an evil which is a thing outside of God. In the Christian tradition, Satan and his angels were fallen angels. They were created by God. They were created good, and they were created blessed in the light of God. So they are not equal to God by any measure. They are creatures. And so if they have any power, it is allowed to them by God. That's very important for us to understand. And so that is catechism, right? And so when we see a scene where a devil has power over some human being, and then that power seems to be more powerful than the crucifix, or more powerful than the Eucharist, or more powerful than the power of scriptures, then you have to question whether that is reality. That is an exaggeration.
I had a question. So, for the users that are not Christian, how would you say that even they might be scared when they are watching? They might be, maybe a bit disturbed when they're watching scary movies, but they're not Christian. So how would you suggest that they could tackle this type of problem?
It's sufficient for me to say to such people in the audience who might be watching this episode is that the first thing you need to know is that God is more powerful than any evil force out there that you could encounter. And I'd like to share with you that in the Christian worldview, there is only one God who loves us, and He loves you, and He sees you as His child. And so there is nothing that He will allow to happen to you that would destroy your life. And so if you are going down a spiral of fear and despair and doubt and superstitious beliefs that, evil forces are at work in your life, maybe my humble invitation to you would be, call on the name of Jesus, or call on God as you understand Him, and He will reveal Himself to you. He will reveal in the depths of your heart that He is there. And where God is, there is no need to fear. God is light, and Him there is no darkness. And so, when I was growing up, I used to be scared of the dark. I wouldn't like to sleep in a complete dark room. But today, when I've come to this deeper conviction that Christ dwells in me, and that He is the light of the world, I can walk into the darkest corner and I know there is a light which is much more bright, which is shining within me. And I think that is the beauty of the Christian faith, that it's not about the devil. It's about God and His goodness, that God so loved the world that He sent His only Son, that whoever believes in Him should have eternal life. And so we need not have fear. St. John says, where there is perfect love, there is no fear.
Perfect love.
So if you've made it your aim in life to love God with all your mind, heart and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, next time I see a ghost, I say, oh my dear brother, do you know Jesus? Have you invited Him into your life? Maybe then you'll be freed. Maybe he's in purgatory or she's in purgatory and she needs to go back to God. You see? So the whole perspective changes. And also for us in the Christian world, we need to ask ourselves, how much is the devil central to our spirituality and how much is Jesus central to our spirituality?
I think we, most of the people focus more on the evil.
Yeah, I've heard of people saying, I've got a headache today, the devil is playing some mischief on me. Or I've seen, oh, something was happening in my room.
But Father, how do we distinguish between what is our, say, psychological things and psychological beliefs that we take on, and the spiritual, aspect of it?
Right. I'm not an expert in all of that. All I have is a diploma in religious formation and psychology, counseling psychology. And I've done a bit of reading on exorcism. One resource that I found very helpful is a book by Father Mike Discroll called Demons, Deliverance and Discernment. Now, the beauty of that book is that this priest knows the depth of psychology, and he's also involved in the ministry of exorcism for his diocese. And so he brings knowledge of both fields to his writing. And I can share with you some of the things that I can recall from the top of my mind, but maybe you want to read that book sometime. I think it's available on Amazon too. Demons, Deliverance and Discernment. So he talks about some trademark tests to see whether it is a psychological reality or it's a demonic possession. So one of them is supernatural strength, like a tiny girl who's maybe 13 years old, not being able to be held down by 10 men who are double her size. That could be one. Supernatural strength. Another could be, let's say, a girl in rural North India suddenly speaking perfect German. Or I remember attending a seminar by an exorcist who was explaining to us that there was a scientific doctor who wanted to. He was a bit of a skeptic about the reality of demonic possession, and when his niece was complaining of a demonic affliction and they called on this priest to visit her, he was taking down notes and making scientific observations about what is going on. So as Father started to say the prayers, this girl turns towards him, it seems, and says, when you were a student in the university, and you were studying to be a doctor, why was it that you hid your religious faith by keeping your picture of Mother Mary in your pocket because you were afraid of showing your faith in a secular society? So there's no way that 12-year-old kid was born when this guy was going to the university. So that's like incredible supernatural knowledge, of things that, and the knowledge is displayed to intimidate, not to edify, So that is one. Another symptom is that without the person's knowledge, that person reacts to sacramentals or like holy water. They may have no background towards Christianity or anything, but maybe you put a little bit of holy water in their soup and see what happens. So these are maybe some tried and tested things that exorcists do to distinguish between them, but it's not so clear as all that. The more you study psychology, the more things get more murky, and I would say that today the church is a lot more cautious. In fact, there's one particular canon of the church that I'd like to quote, because we have very specific expectations of the church with regards to exorcists. Today the church would encourage that before you enter into any kind of an rite of exorcism, that you do a proper visit to a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist before you jump to the conclusion that it is demonic possession. And it is wrong on the part of priests also to assume that it is a demonic possession without doing the basic checks, right? To be appointed as an exorcist in the church, according to Canon 1172, paragraph 1, it says, "No one can perform exorcisms legitimately upon the possessed unless he has obtained special and express permission from the local ordinary." That is a technical term to mean the bishop. Right? And the second paragraph is very, very telling, because the qualities of an exorcist is very rare to find in a priest. The second paragraph reads, "The local ordinary is to give this permission only to a presbyter who has piety, knowledge, prudence, and integrity of life." I can tell you from my own example that I don't match up to all these standards. And so an incredible amount of holiness of life and discretion is needed to discern about these things. So I think if people come out of this conversation with this idea that I don't want people to come out of this with two extreme opinions that very often are out there. The devil doesn't exist. We don't need to bother about him. Or the devil is there everywhere. I need to protect myself, and maybe to people like Lynn who love horror films, kudos to you, because you are following what the scriptures are saying. God has not given you a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. So you can be exposed to those images and your imagination is not disturbed, because you know what is reality, you know what is fantasy. I hope that is what you do. But at the same time, to people like you, be cautious about what you allow to enter through your senses and to shape your imagination and your conscience. Because a lot of our horror films glorify violence, glorify warped sexuality, or cater to the basest instincts of human beings, and sometimes glorify the evil one. I'm sure the evil one will be happy for the free publicity. But we as Christians are called to glorify God in all that we do. And so to people who, for good and valid reasons, avoid exposing themselves to horror films, don't need to be guilt-tripped into watching a film for the peer pressure of it, You be you, they be they, Lynn be Lynn, Jade be Jade. But recognize that there are higher values at stake for us as Christians. That we don't want to glorify the devil. We don't want to minimize the horror of violence and sexual immorality. But we want to glorify God with all that we do and all that we say. Yes, and like you said, Noel, he that lives in us, Christ who lives in us, is greater than the prince of darkness and the Satan and all the evil forces in the world. And so actually, for Christians who have been baptized, you are a new creation in Christ. And so the devil is afraid of you. I think that is what we need to live in as Christians, that there is nothing that we need to fear. In fact, that exorcist was telling us, these poor Satanists and all, they think that they are serving a great power. But they are deluding themselves. They are setting themselves for their own misery and destruction in a way, self-destruction. So although curiosity may lead you there, remember that we are in a spiritual battle. And that's why prayer is important. That's why the sacraments are important. And if we are strengthened in faith through our exposure to the Word of God, the teachings of the Church, the sacramental life, the moral life, if you're leading the ordinary Christian life, there's no need to fear. Jesus is here.
So amazing, Father. I like how you said that if there's Jesus in you, there's no fear. And we learn this from the saints. As Padre Pio was also attacked by evil spirits, and Saint Teresa of Avila also had the devil trying to distract her, and they were so unafraid. They were like, you know what, you don't scare me at all. And that's so beautiful, and we can learn from these saints. But there's certain things that I want to ask, especially the superstition we believe from these movies. So, do you really think by walking past the cemetery, an evil spirit would be there? Like we should avoid the cemetery at night?
No, why should you? As I said, my personal opinion, again, no church teaching on this matter, whether you should walk in the cemetery at night or not. But my personal faith is, if I had to walk through a cemetery in the night, I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't be afraid, simply because the light is in me. And my brothers and sisters who have gone before me are there. Many of them living in virtue and dying in virtue, testifying to the faith. So I'm there in good company with the communion of the saints. We believe in the communion of the saints, right?
Yes.
So why should we be afraid of cemeteries? See, many of these are cultural beliefs that we carry with us. But if we truly live in the light of the gospel, there need not be any fear.
So, what are the cultural ideologies that you think are against the Catholic Church with respect to these movies? For example, the cross, when it's upside down, people think it's Antichrist, but it's actually
Saint Peter died on a cross that was upside down. So these are all popular memes that horror films have sold us. So again, symbols have meaning in their context, okay? And I can imagine someone with hatred towards Christianity who thinks that he is insulting Christ by holding the cross upside down. So we don't want to be encouraging that kind of imagery. But if we understand it in context, why did the artist choose to do it? That's important to ask, right?
But I saw a video where one of the satanic churches in the US, their altar was an upside down cross. So doesn't it
again, the intention would have been to insult Christ, right?
Okay.
So in that context, it would have been bad, but not because an evil spirit is showing itself more powerful than Christ, but it is bad because it is a blasphemy. It's a sacrilege against the sanctity of God.
Okay.
And it is that person who is in danger, who is indulging in that kind of art, rather than us who behold it. You see?
Yeah.
The danger is to the one who produces that kind of thing. And the danger is to the one who is influenced by that thought, to think that evil is more powerful than God, that I can blaspheme God and do sacrilege and get away with it in the ultimate analysis. But at the end of life, I think we do have to meet a merciful judge.
Yeah.
And when he looks at us, it's not our sins that will come up most in his mind, but it is our sins that will come up most in our minds. And that's what I believe today is purgatory, is that what we haven't been willing to give up in this life, the Lord burns away in his loving presence before we enter into heaven. And so that's the need for purgatory. You know, that we have been clinging to pleasures and positions and powers in this life rather than clinging to God. And that's where we need the purification. Right? And so that's my understanding of that reality.
So as we have come to the end of this episode, I would ask Lynn and Jade, you both came with two strong voices. Jade for against horror movies and Lynn for. How have your opinions changed, Jade?
I'm still against it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Again, I think one thing that we've learned throughout this episode is not only, individually discerning what's right for one's being, but also respecting, certain choices and decisions. But in that way, I still strongly would like to also say that being brought up in a Christian Catholic faith, it's very important to take things like this a little more serious, because they are important decisions as to how things could take a toll on your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really happy where I am today, and I'm really grateful for the faith that I've been brought up with. So I mean, I don't feel the need to watch a horror film. I might as well watch a biblical film and learn something more in those lines, right? Because nowadays, even though the entertainment industry is growing and there could be a lot of deceptions with certain topics that they convey, you have like the Chosen series that's come out, you have another series, The House of David. It's really inspiring to watch this, to actually get an idea as to how things were those days in Jerusalem, how people dressed up and things like that. So, might as well indulge in something like that than waste your time just trying to wait for like a jump scare or some figure out there and then be like, okay, I got the adrenaline rush that I wanted. So my stance remains the same.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Lynn.
And I think I always came with the perspective here saying that it's not bad to watch horror movies because there's the intent matters by the end of the day. Like, what is the kind of message you want to spread? Do you want to spread hate, or do you want to spread the normalcy which has been created around violence, or do you want to raise awareness on the stuff that's depicted out in the movies out there? It's not really true. So let's get to the truth and talk about that. So I would still stick to my stance where I go back, consume content if required, just for the greater good, to just spread a good message out there telling people that, hey, this is not what the reality is, but why don't you explore something that is going to give you more happiness and it's going to keep you positive throughout. So that's how I would like to conclude this.
Anyway, I would say that the reason why we had this conversation is so that we form our consciences according to the best sources that we have available to us. So definitely getting like Lynn was well formed in her catechism. Kudos to your catechism teachers, by the way, and so that she can kind of know where she stands with regards to the faith, and explore with her friends and enter into dialogue with her friends, I would say, with an opportunity to speak about Jesus and about her faith to them. And kudos to Jade also for sticking to his guns and going by what will not disturb him personally. He values his relationship with Jesus than perhaps the popularity that would come by joining with his friends in entertainments that are culturally popular at the time. So that also is an expression of discipleship and the cost of discipleship in following Jesus. So to both kinds of youth, kudos to you, but always remember, stick close to Jesus, stick close to the church, stick close to the sacraments, and don't take your faith lightly. Your faith is the most important gift that God has given to you, and treasure it with all your might.
Amazing. I would like to thank Lynn, Jade, and Father Sandeep also for coming and sharing with Michelle and I all the experiences and knowledge. Thanks for joining in for this episode of Hard Rock Cafe. I would request all of you to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, or if you have any doubts, or if you want us to have another episode about entertainment in the Catholic Church, please do comment. And we are signing off.
This is us signing out from Hard Rock Cafe Season 2, where we have conversations over a solid rock of faith and a cup of coffee. Thank you.